Meeting will come to order, please. I now call the July 2nd Financial Committee meeting to order at 6:47. Consideration of claims. Chair would entertain a motion for the approval of claims.
I can do it. Your Honor, I'd like to move that the committee approve the consideration of claims in the amount of $147,943.18, manual checks in the amount of $21,730.24, payroll and liabilities for 6/27/2024 in the amount of $506,299.81 for a total of $675,975.23.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do we have any information required from Mr. Butler? Mr. Butterfield, Mr. Butler.
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't have anything.
Mia, do you have anything for us?
No, Your Honor, this is the last of the claims paid for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
No, sir.
Move that we close this second. We close this finance committee. So closed.
Now call the July 2nd, 2024 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Councilmember Cox was supposed to give us the Pledge of Allegiance, but I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Councilman Peranto will lead us in an invocation. If you could all please rise and remove hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we come together tonight seeking your guidance. Bless us with clear minds and open hearts as we navigate this meeting and do the will for the people of Riverton. Lord, guide our decisions so they reflect not just the will of the people, but also your unending love and justice for us. May our actions bear fruit that nourishes your creation and brings us closer to your divine will. May we also lift up in prayer our first responders, military, their families, and grant them safety, strength, and resilience as they serve and protect us. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Administrative Services Director, Mrs. Harris, could you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilmember Dean Peranto.
Here.
Councilmember Lindsey Cox.
Absent.
Councilmember Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilmember Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilmember Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I am here, and I would entertain a motion to excuse Councilwoman Lindsey Cox from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders with the motion, Councilman Bailey with the second. Any discussion, amendments? I think she's watching the last baseball game tonight. Anyway, all right. What's that? Yes, that's the Raiders are going to play the Little League All-Stars, I think. Good luck, Raiders. Or Little League Arts, All-Stars, whoever. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare we have a quorum present. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Motion by Councilwoman Borders, second by Councilman Peranto. Any discussion, amendments, additions, subtractions?
Oh, Your
Comfortable
Honor.
with the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Council committees reports and council members roundtable. Mr. Bailey, you want to start us off tonight?
Sure, I'm easy this time. I have not had any meetings since we've met last time, so
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
That is easy. Councilman Peranto.
Your Honor, we had the Central Wyoming Airport Board meeting on the 21st of June, during which time we discussed the FAA compliance letter, the upcoming North General Aviation ramp expansion, the engineering services that we approved at the meeting before last, and the possibility of providing some self-serve fuel kind of during that remodel, just making sure that we're thinking through that. And kind of cool, already as of May, we're over 6,300 employments, so we're well on our way to the 10,000 plus. So looking good. And with that,
Sounds great. And I think that number of employments for a month is the highest we've had since '02. Is that what I saw?
was that in May that we had the highest? Or
June.
June? Okay,
June. Yeah. So I guess that wasn't talked about at the meeting, but
it was not. But nonetheless,
I thought
still
that
real.
was awesome.
Yep.
It's great.
It's kind of neat when you look at the chart over the last really the last 2 years, just a steady growth path. So that's pretty impressive.
Good deal.
A lot of hard work goes into that.
I agree. Yeah. Councilman Larson.
Your Honor, I made my annual trip to Lander, and I bought roughly $400 worth of what I call rockets, but in fact, they call them mortars. And so when it gets dark, I'm going to be lighting the sky up on 16th East and 100 North. So if you've got dogs or military problems, go to Jeffrey City and see the lights there. But I'm going to light it up on the 4th of July, Your Honor. Thank you.
Avoid 16th Street then.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
Yeah.
Unless
Be
you
around
like fireworks.
Got it. All right, Councilwoman Borders.
Your Honor, I haven't had any committee meetings lately, but I did want to pass on the word from PAWS. July 10th, they're having a statewide fundraiser for nonprofits. PAWS is in dire need of funding. They've got a lot of animals right now, and they have a huge vet bill. So if you can go to the website WYO Gives on July 10th, I think it's all day. You can donate to the nonprofit of your choice. Also, if you need more information, you can always call PAWS or go down there and they can give you more information or look at the Facebook page. And that's all I have.
And if I'm remembering correctly, on WYO Gives Day, there's a certain amount that's also matched of any donation. Is that correct?
That I am not 100% aware of the details on, so.
Okay, I just think that's what they've done in years past, is when you give on WYO Gives Day, there's a matching, but I think it's only for a certain number or a certain amount of donations all told.
And perhaps, maybe when we find out, we could have the city put it on their Facebook page
I think that'd be a good idea.
for people that want the information.
'Cause I know, for example, PAWS is looking for funds, and then the Help Center also was recently featured on County 10 that they were looking for funds. So, okay, sounds good. Thank you. Councilwoman Salisbury?
Your Honor, I have not attended any meetings since our last meeting either, but I do want to wish everybody a safe and happy 4th of July week.
Thank you, I appreciate it. All right, City Administrator, Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do have a few items to run through and would like to dovetail and wish everybody a happy 4th of July holiday. I hope it's safe and everybody enjoys the opportunity to celebrate with their families and friends. As a reminder, our municipal code does allow for our residents to use formerly Class C designated fireworks on the 4th of July between 6 p.m. and 11:45 p.m. They're currently classified as 1.4G, but I think it's easier to say a Class C firework is allowed during that window of time. And again, we hope that people enjoy a safe celebration on the 4th. Was very happy to attend an event held by the Northern Arapaho Tribe to honor the return of Chief Blackhole's headdress. It was a very, I think, a special moment for the tribe, and it was humbling for us as staff to be part of that and witness it, and we are happy for our tribal partners and, again, for their invitation and allowing us to be part of such a monumental experience for their culture and their tribe and their history. We like to make people aware that the construction is moving along positively for the Webwood Road construction project, and it is planned to be paved next week. So if folks are utilizing that corridor, just be advised that there will be delays as it relates to the paving of that project. Also happy to report that 3 of the grants that we recently communicated to you were awarded. As far as communication as our applications go, the Department of Energy awarded the city funds to retrofit its streetlights. And the Department of Homeland Security, for example, also awarded us funds for security upgrades at the airfield. Unfortunately, we were not notified or awarded for the RAISE grant. That grant is part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and we've applied for it 3 years now. And unfortunately, this most recent application to improve Airport Road was not successful. Staff is working on another application because there will be at least 5 rounds of funding as it relates to bill, and we hope that we have better consideration as we move forward. It was noted that earlier we had success when it comes to commercial air service, and I'm happy to report that we just received the June employment reports, and June recorded the highest number of departing passengers for all the months of June going back to 2002 when I have data readily available. But maybe more importantly, it should be noted that June was the highest number of recorded passengers for any month in that over 20-year period. There were 1,976 passengers departing from Central Wyoming Regional. I think that's a testament to our air service provider, a testament to the many people that have worked on air service throughout the years, and also a testament to our community because commercial air service connectivity would not be possible without the support of the optional 0.5% tax. And so I thank our community for implementing that because it's allowed us to provide a service that it's clear to me there is a market for. And when we look at connectivity to rural areas of the nation, it drives economic opportunity. So we're appreciative, and I think there's opportunity to celebrate a little bit because we're seeing numbers that we've known were always possible, but now we're seeing them because we have the service that matches the market and the demand. The EDGE application period closed, and there were 10 that were received. Would like to note that Thursday, July 11th at 6 o'clock will be the EDGE meeting where there will be opportunity to hear presentations from the individuals or organizations that applied. And then also on July 18th at 6 o'clock, there will be opportunity for the EDGE committee to gather and rank and rate those presentations and the applications to then make a recommendation to you. I have two other items, and I think before I turn the time to Mr. Miller for the last one, I just want to say thank you to our city employees. We have a lot of dedicated city employees across the board, and I appreciate the time they put into serving our community and dedicating, I think, to the areas that they're very passionate about. No one goes into municipal government to make $1 million, but they do make a difference in their community. And I think that's the reason why a lot of us work for Riverton is you get to see problems in the community, but you also get to be part of the solution. So I want to say thank you to all of our employees because sometimes it's not easy working for municipal government, especially when we're facing staffing challenges. But I am very appreciative of the employees that show up, do their work, and provide such good service to our community. We would like to note that we have noticed that there are several code violations throughout town, and our community development department is very active in addressing those violations. And to give a bit of perspective on that, I'd like to turn the time to Mr. Miller to provide a report to you as a council.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Kyle. Currently in community development and code enforcement, we have 31 weeds violation cases, 14 nuisance property cases, and 9 general property maintenance cases active in the system. That's 54 that we're currently working on, and we'll visit all of those sites this week and talk to each of those individuals this week. We currently have 5 condemned structures that we're working through the system. Also, this calendar week, we've issued 7 citations, 2 commercial, 5 residential. In last week's court, we had 3 cases appear in court for code violations. 2 of those were convictions, and one of those is currently an open case that has a plea that we're working on. And with cooperation with the new community service officer that we have is allowing us to get a lot more active in this environment as we continue to bring more CSOs in per the chief's plan. It's going to allow us to continue working more heavily in this aspect, and there is a lot of work going on in this category right now. And that's all that I've got. Stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Anything else, Mr. Butterfield?
I did say I only had 2 more, but I forgot. I should notice or make note that the Fix Our Road Citizen Committee meeting that is regularly scheduled for July is canceled. So that will not be held this upcoming Monday. And that's my last one, Mayor.
Okay. If you have one to add while I'm talking, just interrupt and feel free to let me know. All right, I've had a busy couple of weeks. We've had some enjoyable things going on. We had an open house at the Job Corps and combined with an anniversary celebration. Wyoming Community Bank celebrated its 25th anniversary, so I had an opportunity to go and get a hamburger there. I really appreciate how many anniversary celebrations we've had. I've had a lot of hamburgers lately. They're good. I'm not complaining. It just has been really funny that it's like anniversary celebration / hamburgers has been the name of the game for the last month or so. So Ace Hardware had an anniversary celebration. Job Corps had an anniversary celebration. Wyoming Community Bank had an anniversary celebration. We had a grand opening for Epic Salon. That was a great opportunity to go to that. Really appreciate Lisa Wright and her husband putting so much work into getting a new business in town. They were also recipients of some of the EDGE funding. Had an opportunity to do the welcome at the Garden Club meeting. They had the State Garden Club here for their meeting and also had First Lady Jenny Gordon, who was here. So I was able to do the welcome there. I did not stick around. But I was able to visit with a couple of Girl Scouts afterwards. They did the flag ceremony for the Garden Club meeting. And the Girl Scouts are putting a lot of work into getting different, I don't know what to call it, but different agility sort of things that dogs can do while they're over at the dog park. So they're working at getting those installed. That's going to be taking the next, I was asking, are you going to be done this summer? And they said no, probably because it's kid labor and learning and that kind of thing. But really excited for that. And I did invite them to come to a meeting sometime and do a flag ceremony here. So I think that'd be a lot of fun. And probably also report on it a little bit and let us know how things are going. So if you are someone who uses the dog park over on the Riverwalk often, be looking out for changes there. Also be aware we're getting some trees planted over there, which is great. And we actually participated in, I was able to participate in planting one of the trees here on Arbor Day. So that was a lot of fun. We also had a DUI task force meeting. I really appreciate the hard work that they have been putting towards trying to find solutions for DUIs in our community. One of the biggest things that they've been working on has been increased enforcement. We've been talking about different sort of legislative things we could do for changes and that sort of thing. So I would encourage, if you are interested in that effort, our next meeting, this is not anything that's, you've got to like show your ID at the door or anything like that. You're welcome to come. And if anybody gives you any grief, you can say I invited you. August 7th at 10:30 a.m. and it will be here in City Hall. There's a lot of good things that have come out of that. So we could always use more ideas. We could always use more people involved and would invite you to be involved. I really appreciate, I guess I was going to ask you, Mr. Butterfield, I think with the last 2 times we did the RAISE grant, we'd kind of, you were able to say that we'd improved our standing with it every year, if I remember correct, in terms of how close we came or how our application was rated. Did we keep with that trend, or not every year, but every application period?
Your Honor, we haven't had an opportunity to debrief on this 3rd round, but for the first 2 rounds of application, we rated very highly. Why we didn't receive the funds is another question altogether. It's interesting, I did the first debrief after applying, Mr. Eggleston did the second, and the application wasn't much different from each other. We just honed it down and improved it year over year. But the areas that we scored very high on the first follow-up appointment with the feds, changed on the second year, and the things we rated low ended up improving. So I think we have a very competitive project that we've put forward. We just need to capture the money on one of these upcoming rounds.
Well, let me know what I can do to help with that, but really appreciate your hard work on that. We haven't gotten it yet, but we'll get there, I hope. It's a really good project. Had an opportunity to meet with the downtowners. This was a really good meeting. We were talking about the parking lot that's behind the Acme Theater and just different things that we can do to make that more attractive, make it more usable, and we are going to put a lot of effort into trying to figure out different ways we can address that. Once we get a little bit further along, we'll report to the community as to what we've got going on. But in terms of the steps that we've been trying to take in that regard, the goals are currently removing abandoned vehicles, better lighting, hopefully some cameras, cleaning it up, painting the fence and parking lines, and repairing the asphalt. So those are things that we're wanting to work together with the downtowners, and they're motivated, we're motivated. We're going to try to get what we can done there, so we'll keep you posted in that effort. The last thing is, and I'd promised Councilwoman DeBorders I'd bring this up. We had a group of individuals who had sent us a petition, interesting petition, because it was in didn't have a return address, basically asked for us to, they said there's a national movement to cut back on quality of life policing methods such as making arrests for vandalism, littering, loitering, vagrancy, public intoxication, and urged us to maintain quality of life policing methods. I would have to say that's always been our intent. I don't think we've ever had any desire to modify how those things are being enforced and continue to enforce them. But that's something that I think is important to everybody on the council in terms of our discussion is. Anyway, just an answer to that. Wanted to make sure folks knew that's nothing that we're planning on changing. Okay, communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that's scheduled for a public hearing, they'll be given an opportunity to speak during that public hearing. If it's something that's not scheduled for a public hearing, but we have discussion on it, try to catch my eye if we can. We'll let you speak a few minutes on it if you'd like during that discussion. But I would ask either then or now, if you would speak, that I'd ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes for individuals, 10 minutes if you're a part of a group, kind of split it up with the other members of your group. I would ask you to address all comments and questions to the chairman, me, refrain from use of individual names, keep your comments directed to the issue under consideration. If it's something that we're discussing, I'd ask you to keep your comments to that which has been discussed, and try to avoid making comments of a personal nature that reflect upon the character or conduct of another individual, personal criticism, ridicule, name-calling. So anyway, anyone that would like to come and address the council now, the time is yours. I'd ask you if you'd come up to the podium, identify yourself for the record, and if you're with a group, the group you're with.
I'll kick it off. I'm Kathy Klein. I live in Riverton, and I'll go first so I can get this off the screen and it doesn't bother anybody else. I wanted to update you guys on some of the projects that we've had going on. You're all aware of the interpretive history signs that we're working on. There are 4 that will be installed in Riverton by Wyoming Parks Monuments and Markers program, and then another 7 that we'll do along Heritage Trail. But this is showing you the design of the 4 signs are in production at the moment, and so they need proofed and that kind of thing, but it gives you an idea what they'll look like. The folks from Wyoming Parks were here 2 weekends ago. We drove all the locations so they could see how signs would be situated. And we also looked at the next 2 signs that we would be doing for the next year. and I'd actually applied for them in September. But that's the 1838 rendezvous site and out at the Sugar Beet Station doing an agricultural history sign. They are confident YDOT can manage the space there for us, so those signs are doable. I was always afraid 1838 wouldn't be doable, so excited about that. I would not expect an installation before spring, but the production work is happening right now and will be done before the first of the year. So that's the update on that. The next thing I want to tell you about is, I know a couple weeks ago, Brian brought to you guys a project that we're working on, and you approved a resolution for a grant, an active transportation grant, and we've been working together on that. Just a little background, and as you know, there was a big summit. A bunch of people went to this grant writing summit. We were told that there were millions and millions of dollars available, and that typically Wyoming doesn't perform very well because we don't apply for the money. And so the folks there, our senators and our governor, were asking us, please do what you can to apply. The trick is that anything that all of these disparate individuals might want to do, they need to go to the city or another municipality to get that included in grant form, which puts a fair amount of burden on the city, I would say. Is that fair? So in my role working with the Depot Foundation, we're looking at the Riverwalk and how we might develop the Riverwalk more richly. And my personal feeling is that the Riverwalk has the potential to be our Sinks Canyon. It needs some work to make that happen, but it could be a place that brings tourists into our community. And so I'd like to be a part of making that happen. So after the big workshop, we had a smaller meeting with the folks from the State Budget Office and Hagerty Consulting, both of those being paid for by the governor, and their job is to support us to create successful grants. They suggested 2 different funding sources for, again, what I was considering then developing the Riverwalk, and then Kevin wanted to throw in the 1838 site, and we started picking a few other things here and there. But the first one that they offered up was the active transportation grant, and that one's specifically for pedestrian and bike trails to make them connect people better to the places they need to go. It's got $45 million available, which is not huge, but we are applying that $300,000 that you guys okayed for us to apply for, is for a planning grant, because the expectation is that you plan, you bring a consultant in, you figure out what's feasible, and then that supports your implementation grant later. Original deadline was in June, but they extended it the day before it was due, so now we got another month, and that ends 7/15. So we're working on that, and it's coming together really well. The second funding opportunity is Safe Streets for All, and this is a program that's got millions and millions and millions of dollars. But it includes not just pedestrian and bike trails, it includes roads and bridges and parking lots and other things, making the community safe. And so when we get done with active transportation, we'll pivot and move that way. And I know Brian's already got a lot of work going on that thing. Again, I just want to say thank you, because none of this is possible on my side of it without support from the city. This is a map of our trails. I'm just going to go over that real fast, but I'm going to hit some of the high points of what's in this active transportation grant. One of the first and foremost things we're asking for is we're asking the consultant to look at how we can take our heritage and our Riverwalk trails and make them safer, addressing our vagrancy and vandalism issues. The expectation is they'll do a lot of listening sessions here in town, but then they will also look out to other communities around the nation and see who has been successful dealing with this in whichever ways, and then make those recommendations to us. In my way, I'm hoping that the recommendations are usable for more than just the trails, but many places around town. So that's a big part of that. Hit the wrong button, sorry. Second part of the, or another part of the grant consideration is, again, making the Riverwalk safer also, because people spend the night there. But you see the little red dotted line off to, I don't know if you can see it, the right there, looking to extend the Riverwalk to 789. It would then connect up with the northern, or the Arapahoe pathway, and it just make a more complete trail system that way. Also, what you can see in the green there on that map, that is the property that is the Riverwalk. And there is a lot of property on the south side of the river along with trails. But those are really hard to access trails. You can only get to them when the river is down. And I'm not a person that's going to risk that, but some people do. So what we would like this consultant to do is also look at how we can get access to that south side of the river. What are the possible options that might be out there? And that's how we start to develop this park into something that really is more than just the pathway that it is now. And then the next part of that is extending, seeing if it's feasible to extend a path over to the 1838 rendezvous site, and maybe develop those paths a little more. And really the combination of the Riverwalk and the 1838 would be a really powerful asset, I think, for tourism. I keep hitting the wrong button, sorry. So a really big part of this grant request is looking at developing a pedestrian path coming down Airport Hill. And I know this was part of the RAISE grant, so this gives us another shot at looking for that, although at this point, it's just looking for the pedestrian aspect. At Safe Streets, then we can again look for both the road and the pedestrian access. But as you know, it's incredibly dangerous. There's a lot of kids coming up and down that hill all the time. What we'd like to do is at least get a pedestrian path that goes all the way down to CWC, where then sidewalks start. And then the final piece to this is, if you can see on the map, I don't know how good you guys can see it, but we have some really great trails, but they don't connect well. And because they don't connect well, if you're a young person trying to get from Valley View down to your job on Federal, and you're going to ride your bike to it, some of that you can do on asphalt, but a lot of it you're going to have to do in the weeds, or against traffic that's going 60 miles an hour, that kind of thing. So that's why it's really important that we find a way to connect our trails together so there's one network that a person can go from point A to point B and get there safely. So this grant that we're asking for, again, asks for a consultant to come in and give us some good solutions to these issues, help us understand how much it will cost to do that, what the timing would be on it, that sort of thing. And then, again, once we do this planning grant, then a year later we turn around and ask for an implementation grant, and that would be in the millions of dollars. So right now, pretty much the narrative's written, the budget is written, and the budget narrative is written. Thank you, Brian, for that. The letters of support you have on your desk there, the letter from Senator Lummis. Our other senator and representative are intending to send one too. You have a whole list of everyone who's either sent us a letter of support or is intending to send us a letter of support. And so you can see there's a lot of really good support here. Once we push this out the door, which is again the 15th or the 17th, I think it's the 17th, yeah. Then we'll turn around and apply for the matching money from the governor's office. We're very confident about those funds, and we've already started that. Turn around and go to Safe Streets for All. So finally, in all of this, what I want to say is this has been a big process just for this one grant request. There's been a lot of help from the city. Mia really saved me on a really big piece of it. Kyle has been a big support. But Brian has been an incredible support. And as I mentioned, you know, the city staff, they have some pretty good ideas as to where they think the improvements need to be made in this city. And so when it comes to writing a grant, they kind of know where they want to go. So when you get somebody like me, a citizen from who knows where, that says, but I want this, this, and this, it can be inconvenient. So I really appreciate Brian's collaboration with me and his patience. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Klein.
Anybody got any questions?
I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. And as we talked about before the meeting, I'm happy to send a letter too, so.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
My name is Julie Buller. I'm the interim chamber director, and I just want to say thank you to Kathy for everything that she's done. You know, they say it takes volunteers to get stuff done with the cooperation, obviously, of the city and county and our municipalities and government folks. But if our community citizens in these small rural communities don't step up and volunteer and do things, things just don't happen. And so Kathy has done, I can't imagine all of this work she's done volunteer. She's crazy, but she loves this community, and so she's willing to step up. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the Trails Grant, too. I talked with Wyoming Pathways, Michael Kuzak, a week ago, and several of the people that applied for the ARPA Outdoor Recreation Grant were notified that their grant was not approved. Ours is at the governor's office. I don't know what that means as far as what the next steps are, but Mike did tell me that Wyoming Pathways has a 90+ success rate on their grants. So we're still got our fingers crossed and optimistic on that. Ours is a small piece of what Kathy's doing there, but ours is to basically maintenance and repairs of the trails and do signage on them. And then she can bring in and hopefully get that funding to where we can make them safer and more accessible. And in ours, we have a little bit of connection in our grant that we applied for, but not near the connections that she's got in here. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get this 5.6 million, start there, and then continue on with what she's got going there too. So I'm optimistic about all of it as well. So just wanted to share with you, Tim has already mentioned all of the burgers and hot dogs and all of the open houses and the celebrations. The chamber's been there, and we've kind of laughed at each of those, saying, okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll have a burger tomorrow at the next ribbon cutting or grand opening. So the chamber's been involved with all of these ribbon cuttings and anniversaries, and it's been good to, be a part of all of this and welcome our new businesses and help celebrate their successes. We typically do our first Friday's Lunch and Learn, which would be July 5th, and we're not going to do one on July 5th because of the holiday weekend. So our next event will be, that we know of, will be July 18th is our after hours, and we have several new chamber members, Kufaru, Brunton, Snyder Signature Properties, and those will be our 3 co-sponsors, and then we've got Hospice and... yeah, thank you, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and it seems like there's one more for our nonprofit, but we've been really pleased with our after hours. The very first one that we did with the co-sponsoring, we had well over 60 people at our new location at the chamber. The one we just had at the country club, we had roughly around 50 people out there, and the hospital gave their update, which you guys had already heard. And but people really appreciated having that information. And then this next one will be July 18th at our Adult Rec Center. WRECK, and she's also a new member too, and that's out on Federal. So come join us on July 18th, and then be on the watch for July 15th. We're going to roll out our new logo. We've been working on a new chamber logo, so we're going to roll that one out. The board's been working with Shannon Watts on that, and we finally came to a conclusion and approved a new logo. And July 27th, 1 to 4 p.m. on Main Street. You got lots of kids, Tim. Get your soapbox derby cars built and come race down Hill Street with us. We've had a lot of interest in that, so we're hoping the 2nd annual Soapbox Derby will be a big event, and that'll be after the Fair Parade on July 27th. Our next Lunch and Learn, August 2nd, which is the first Friday, and that will be the 0.5% economic development sales tax. We'll be giving a presentation. We'll have Kevin Kershesnik, and I believe Leo was going to join us, the EDGE chairman, and so please plan on participating in that. And I think that's enough right now. We've got plenty on our plates. The chamber is basically out there doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're excited. I think things are going well for us, and I know the collaboration between the city and the chamber has been good, so we appreciate everything that you guys have been doing to help us out, and we look forward to more good things to come to Riverton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor. Julie, the Lunch and Learn, is that at CWC?
It is.
Okay.
Yep, always on the first Friday.
Okay.
And after hours are always on a Thursday, but we don't have a set Thursday because we let the sponsors pick the Thursday. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Don't miss Mr. Miller. He's
Don't skip out on.
Thank you, sweetheart.
appreciate it.
My goodness. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My grandkids are just eager. I just want to come down here to say thank you, guys. Those are, you try to teach your kids to say thank you, and those are thank you cards from us, from MMIP Wind River, for the support for the May 5th March. So we gave one to Mr. Mayor Hancock, City of Riverton, and Chief of Police Hurtado, because it couldn't have been done without you guys. So you guys are hard to catch up with the summer schedules. So I thought it'd be nice to come down here on a positive note to say thank you. We've been really busy, and we just now got through with Wear Red Day at the INFR Tour Rodeo. Huge success. We passed out 400 T-shirts. It was overwhelming. With the many people coming to visit our canopy and sharing their stories from Arizona, Montana, New Mexico, and people signing up for Mending Broken Hearts with White Buffalo Recovery. So, I mean, if we can help people heal, that services are available, then we're doing something of helping others, their livelihood, their well-being, their mental health, and doing our good deeds for the day of humanity. And my little helpers here, they were out there with the signs and just amazing with the posters, if you guys can imagine. Come get your free T-shirts. Nobody turned them away. And they were just bringing everybody in, and we just got overwhelmed. So I just wanted to thank you guys, and you too, Mr. Brian, always helping us. And they enjoyed coming down here, seeing you guys, and, all excited. So I just wanted to thank you guys for support. We got a lot of things coming to keep the momentum going, however we can stop the violence, work together, make it safe for Indigenous people and everybody, because it affects, a lot of people. Again, I applaud Mr. Hancock and Mr. Chief Hurtado marching with us. It was overwhelming. A lot of CWC staff were there, of knowing somebody Indigenous that was taken, beyond. And it was overwhelming, but it was worth it. Every time we get out there, it's worth it. So we just wanted to come down here and say thank you. And condolences, Miss Border, for the loss of your mother. My heart hurts for you. And I know she'd be proud of you, and grateful and a privilege to know you as well. So with that being said, am I able to talk about anything else, Mia, with flags? Or can I say anything?
You can say what you want. You've got about a minute and a half.
Can I share that?
I think so.
I don't think there's any reason you can't share whatever you're wanting to share.
Well, I'm
unless it's like,
beaming with joy because Mia contacted me that we get the flags. So that's a win. And I'm just overwhelmed and grateful. And especially you, Brian, because he was like, wait, Nicole, what about the polls? And I'm like, holy cow, so this is a team effort, and it couldn't be done without all of you guys, and especially Mia and the patients, and Kyle always pointing me in the right direction, and Max, I mean, you're awesome. So,
That's why we
really,
keep Brian around, is to remind us about the obvious.
right?
He's smart enough to know the not obvious things, too. I'm not trying to say anything there.
So,
He does very well at being like, hey, if we're going to have flags, we should have poles.
So anyhow, I'm really, really, really thankful and grateful, and it's going to make a difference and to make it better and safer again. I can't thank you guys enough, but I'm just excited when Mia called, and I'm like, it just all comes together, and for us to be able to come down here and to say thank you as always, and, to do it for my little ones here. And Raphael rode the mutton busting.
Oh,
Sheep.
Yeah.
yeah.
Sheep.
How'd you do, Raphael?
At the
Did
radio.
well? Huh?
At the radio.
Yeah,
At the radio.
yes. I know about mutton busting. I was actually thinking of having my son go and do it, because he's 8, and I think the age it was up to 10 or something. I don't remember. Oh, was that? Oh, well, then he might not have been able to do it.
Only young ones go into the sheep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And then they have anyway, sounds good. So did you win?
He got 79 points.
Nice job. You held on.
Scored first, second, and he placed.
Good job.
So we were happy, and it was delightful. I don't know if the sheep knew it was Raphael, but to share with you, if I could share the video on the thing, I could and would, but he got on, held on, and it was so gentle with him. It just moved, and he was just holding on to it, and he got off. I mean, he probably could have held on to it longer, but it didn't buck or like the others. So
Good.
it was a hoot.
Job.
The sheep whisperer.
Secret, get
Yeah.
the draw.
he got the nice sheep. So
Well, thank you, Nicole, and thank you for bringing in Raphael and Naya.
Malaya.
Alea. All right.
Hello.
Okay, I could call you May.
And she won in the stick horse racing. So
Oh,
can
nice.
I get a picture
Good job.
of you guys with my grandkids real quick and
Sure,
you
that's
wave
fine.
the hands or something, and go ahead, go up there. Did you give them to them? Oh, my lantern.
Oh, you're going to come up here. You wanna
Oh,
sit
thank
here?
you. I appreciate it. There, you can go around. Calm down. Few minutes.
Big chair.
Boy, he thinks.
Smart kid.
You probably could use the gavel, too, if you'd like.
Someday.
I have to use the gavel.
He doesn't hold back, does he?
Do it again. That's what I do.
Okay, look this way. Everyone smile. Raphael, the winner.
Thanks.
Hello. Hello.
I think they heard you, dude. Good.
So just say, meeting adjourned.
You had to do that last time.
I did.
Oh.
Yeah. So he thinks he can do it again. Thank
I
you.
know. It's all right.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Oh, he missed Councilman Peranto.
Dean got a fiver.
Sorry. High five.
All right, is there anyone else? We'll move on from public comment. You guys can go ahead. All right, Administrative Services Director, Mrs. Harris, could you please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, June 18th, 2024, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, June 28th, 2024, special meeting. Approval of the minutes, July 2nd, 2024, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations, July 2nd, 2024. Open container permit application for 381 Subs and Salads for the car show at 702 East Main Street, July 19th, 2024, from 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. Open container permit for Bar 10 for the Friday night cruise at 114 South Broadway, July 19th, 2024, from 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. Open container permit application for Hilltop Liquor Friday night cruise at South 3rd East Street, July 19th, 2024, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. An open container permit application for the Riverton Downtowners Main Street Alliance Fall Harvest Festival at Main Street, September 28th, 2024, from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m.
All right. Any items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met earlier, and we had consideration of claims for $147,946.18, manual checks in the amount of $21,730.24, payroll liabilities for June 27th in the amount of $506,299.81, for a total of $675,975.23.
Thank you. You got it.
Yeah.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders with the motion, Councilman Peranto with the second. Council discussion, amendments, additions.
Your Honor, I'll abstain from any warrants paid to Wyonet.
Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Are you still there, Councilwoman Salisbury?
Your Honor, I just got a text. She was kicked off the line. We may need to call her back.
I was listening for the vote, and I will have to say, when we had three of you that were on the phone at the same,
And it's kind of a wicked echo on the other end.
was it?
The mutes so that we wouldn't get a lot of feedback, but yeah.
Hello. Yes, I'm here now.
Hey, Christy, it's Max. I've got you back on the line.
Christie?
And I vote aye.
Okay. Motion passes. All right, community contract for services agreements, city administrators report.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Riverton receives direct distribution funding from the state of Wyoming each year. This allocation changes from year to year, and it's dependent on legislative action. Historically, these monies are allocated to one-time purchases because they are considered one-time revenues and they do fluctuate. And that would be in the example of capital expenditures for the most part. However, a portion is also provided to local programs and organizations that benefit our communities, or the citizens of our community. These organizations are not under the direct oversight of the City of Riverton and are not maintained as city departments. In fiscal year 24, which we just ended a couple days ago, City Council approved funding totaling $275,000 for these community organizations, and that was a total of 13 entities that were recipients last fiscal year. After completing an advertising period, the City Council received presentations on April 9th, 2024, from 20 community organizations seeking funding from this source of direct distribution monies. Of the 20 that were submitted, there was a total of $783,649 of requests. Later, the council prioritized these requests, and that was on May 14th, 2024, as part of the budget process. Through that process, there was general consensus of the City Council to choose and to fund 8 of these 20 community organizations in the amount of $240,000. This consensus was finalized with the adoption of the fiscal year 25 budget. As we are now in the new fiscal year, we'd like to prepare funding agreements for the entities that you selected. They are included in your packet and are very similar to the funding agreements that have been utilized over the last several years for community service contracts. We encourage the council to consider these and approve or disapprove them by individual action. And I'll stand for any questions if you have them, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to approve the service agreement between the City of Riverton and Eagles Hope Transition Center.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, Councilwoman Borders with the second. Discussion, amendments.
We need the amount in the motion?
No, well, that had already been approved as part of the budget.
Okay.
So this is just the agreement itself. At least I think so. Is that correct, Mr. Butterfield?
That's correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Entertain a motion to approve the service agreement between the City of Riverton and Injury Prevention Resources, IPR.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Pronto with the motion. Councilman Bailey with the second. Discussion, amendments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Entertain a motion to approve the service agreement between the City of Riverton and the Juvenile Justice Services of Fremont County.
So moved.
Second.
Woman Borders with the motion, Councilman Bailey with the second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Entertain a motion to approve the service agreement between the City of Riverton and MMIP Wind River.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Paranto with the motion, Councilwoman Borders with the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Entertain a motion to approve the service agreement between the City of Riverton and Paws for Life Animal League.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion, Councilman Paranto with the second. Any discussion or amendments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Entertain a motion to approve the service agreement between the City of Riverton and our recreation.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders with the motion, Councilman Paranto with the second. Discussion, amendments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the service agreement between the City of Riverton and the Riverton Chamber of Commerce.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Borders, second by Councilman Bailey. Discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I think that we couldn't pay that amount of money to bring that type of help from volunteers that are in our community, and Chamber of Commerce is just one of those backbone things that big kids have in their toolbox when they become cities. And we need to support that and continue to support it. That being said, it does so much good for the community. You say, well, what type of good? Bringing jobs allows people more access to freedom and enjoyment and makes the city better. And that's what we're here for, is to make the city better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We'll say, I was just looking at this, Mr. Butterfield, paragraph 8 of the pause agreement has a line there from the track changes that we'd want to get rid of.
Your Honor,
Formatting thing.
we'll adjust that before it's executed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think this is the last one. I'd entertain a motion to approve the service agreement between the City of Riverton and the Riverton Volunteer Fire Department.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion, Councilwoman Borders with the second. Discussion?
You know what, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what a professional fire prevention system would cost the city of Riverton?
A lot more.
Yeah, a lot more.
I mean, they do get, because of the district, of course, they get some funding, but not having to pay for folks to be out there doing the work, and they're busy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, heck, when we were talking about their funding request, a couple of them had to leave. The chief had to leave, and
Yeah, there was a call.
right. So they keep busy.
That service, again, it's voluntary. But man, oh man, I don't know what we'd do without it.
Well, and they need people too.
That's right.
I don't. Have you asked if you could volunteer? Would they take you?
I doubt they would take me. I'm colorblind.
Mike?
All you need to know is detect heat.
Heat will eat.
Run, go towards the heat with the water, away from without.
I think they prefer young, skinny, athletic types, not
What are you
the
saying?
opposite of that. Old fat guys don't go.
I got an electric wheelchair. What do you mean?
I will say that one of the things that I really love about our fire department, if you know anything about fire departments and police departments, they don't necessarily mix. There's sometimes a little bit of animosity. To the extent that there is here, it tends to be in a jesting way. They get along just fine. Quite a few people that actually serve as firefighters are also police officers or sheriff's deputies or that kind of thing, and I really appreciate them being willing to do that and really put on two hats where you be going to calls for a lot of different reasons. So in all seriousness, I would encourage you, if you have any sort of community service-mindedness, if you're wanting to be able to do things to help others, there is a need, and I would highly encourage you to find an opportunity to volunteer for the fire department.
And there is training.
And there is training. And they get to do fun things sometimes.
Yep.
Because when they're not working, they get to go out and they get to have competitions around the state and that kind of thing, and sometimes have them here, so. And I will say, the other day, I was looking at a Facebook page, and when they have their once a month meeting, they eat pretty well, too.
Hamburgers.
No.
That's right.
No, this was steaks on the grill. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with hamburgers.
Good for
Don't
that.
have anybody take any idea from this that I don't like hamburgers. All right. All in favor of the contract for services agreement between the Riverton Volunteer Fire Department and the City of Riverton, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, moving on. We're on number 11, Tree Board Consultant. Mr. Eggleston, could you give us a report on this?
Thank you, Your Honor. At the previous council meeting, we presented you with a recommendation for Flaming Tree Solutions to be our tree consultant for our tree inventory project this year. We've since met with them and negotiated an agreement. They have two tasks involved in this project. The first being a traditional tree inventory, some training for volunteer groups to learn how to do or how to perform the inventory, some risk management assessment, prioritize some tree management recommendations, various things. This part of the project would cost $20,000. The second part of that, or the second task involved in this project, is a technology-involved tree inventory using drones and high-resolution cameras, LiDAR, various things to do a very in-depth, high-level inventory of our trees in the city of Riverton. This part of the project is, the funding for that would be $38,000. As you recall, the city was a recipient of a Wyoming Urban and Community Forest Program inflation reduction grant in the amount of $75,000. $58,000 total would go to the consultant. The remaining $17,000 would go to purchase trees recommended by the consultant and planted in the identified locations. The entire project has a value estimated $100,000, with the remaining amount being in-kind work performed by city employees and equipment. We recommend approval of this agreement as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agreement between Flaming Tree Solutions and the City of Riverton as the consultant to execute the 2024 Urban and Community Forestry Project for $58,000.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders with the motion, Councilman Bailey with the second. Mr. Schroyer, anything to add? You can come on up. Might as well introduce yourself to everybody since you're here. Are some of this 17,000, is that part of the trees, are they going to be the ones that are planted near the dog park, or is that from a separate pot? Okay, that's what I thought.
Josh Schroyer, one of the co-owners of Flaming Tree Solutions, a forestry consulting firm located here in Riverton. We do work regionally, and by that I mean multi-state, so it's nice to work here in what our home is. Looking forward to this project. I work with so many communities across the country, and everybody is behind. They're reactive in their tree management. This is a good first step to get proactive. And so really looking forward to that. Ready to go. We've got all our ducks in a row and ready to start implementing here in the next few weeks. And we've got a timeline here of a couple months to get that portion wrapped up. Talking with Brian, again, the tree planting right now, we don't want to be planting trees. It's kind of the worst time of year to plant trees, so the recommendations for the planting spots would then come, and then we'd work on a plan for getting those trees purchased from whatever procedures we need and getting those in the ground probably fall, or really more likely next spring.
Great. Any questions from Mr. Schroyer? Thank you for being here.
All right.
I just had to get you up here because we don't get to hear you speak that often.
It's okay.
I could ask you some really complicated questions about trees and you could show off your knowledge, but...
Well, we could, but I might go over my 5 minutes. So.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are you there, Councilwoman Salisbury?
Yes, I said aye.
Okay, good. You said it with everybody else, so I didn't hear you. Sorry. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Consideration of resolution number 1506, temporary merchant fee schedule. Community Development Director's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor, Council. Chapter 5.30 of the Riverton Municipal Code addresses temporary merchant permitting. A temporary merchant is defined as any person, firm, or corporation, whether as owner, agent, consignee, or employee, whether a resident of the city or not, who engages in a temporary business or contracting for services or the selling of food, beverages, goods, wares, and merchandise in commercially zoned areas within the city or upon municipal property, and who leases, uses, or occupies any structure, vehicle, or any public place for the conduct of business. On May 16, 2017, fees were established via resolution number 1356 for temporary merchants. This established a yearly $100 fee for commercial property and a $100 per event fee for municipally owned property. The Community Development Department issues and administers temporary merchant permits. An example of the application and instruction sheet is attached with this report. Staff recently reviewed the application packet for temporary merchant permits and found a discrepancy regarding the ability to operate on city property or rights-of-way. The previous form restricted the ability of any temporary merchant to conduct business on city property. This was in conflict with the adopted fee resolution and municipal code. The application packet was immediately corrected. After correcting the discrepancy centering on municipal property, staff examined the existing permit fees and questioned whether the difference between the annual and per event structure was appropriate. The difference can be confusing and led to unequitable application. The proposed resolution amends the structure to allow for an annual fee for permits authorized by council on municipal property. It maintains the existing structure for permits operated on commercial properties. The new municipal property fee of $200 essentially assesses a fee of $100 to restrict the public space for private gain and is in addition to the permit fee of $100 that is assessed to those operating on private commercial properties. The city does not regulate how much a private property owner may charge a temporary merchant for conducting business on their own property. There's no current budget impact for this recommendation. And it is the recommendation of city staff that city council approves resolution 1506, revising the fees associated with temporary merchants in the city of Riverton. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Harris, could you please read Resolution 1506 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Resolution number 1506, a resolution establishing the amount of fees for temporary merchants within the city of Riverton, Wyoming.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 1506, authorizing the fees associated with temporary merchants within the city of Riverton.
So moved.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Motion by Councilman Bailey, second by Councilman Larson. Discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for taking care of that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, amendment to Air Service Memorandum of Understanding. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's a lot of detail in your packet on this matter. I'll try and hit my notes, but if you need more detail, it's provided. To provide a little bit of history and to do so briefly, the Commercial Air Service Improvement Act of 2018 was created so that the state of Wyoming could look at commercial air service from a holistic standpoint. It also created the Commercial Air Service Improvement Council. Mayor Lars Baker served on that council. Basically, they were tasked with developing a long-term plan to improve commercial air service in the state of Wyoming. From their meetings and their work, they determined that the state should pursue what's called a capacity purchase agreement for critical need airports and also preserve what was at the time the Air Service Enhancement Program. And that was the only program available to assist entities like Central Wyoming Regional Airport or other airports when it came to contracting with air service providers. With that direction in place, the council then prepared a request for proposals soliciting air service providers to implement a state-sponsored CPA or capacity purchase agreement in Riverton, Gillette, Rock Springs, and Sheridan. After receiving 2 proposals, the state of Wyoming, and maybe more specifically the Aeronautics Commission through the Wyoming Department of Transportation, entered into contract with SkyWest Airlines doing business as United Express. That was on June 24th, 2019. With the contract in place with the state of Wyoming, the city of Riverton, and the other communities that were proposed to participate in the CPA program could opt in to this contract between the state and SkyWest via an MOU. The City Council unanimously decided to do so on August 6, 2019, and the copy of that MOU is in your packet. The MOU includes a lot of details, but essentially it includes flight schedules, the block hour costs, seasonal accommodations, community cost requirements, and then also WIDOT cost requirements. Central Wyoming Regional Airport in Fremont County began receiving service from SkyWest Airlines on January 12th, 2020. This MOU has been amended twice up to this point. The first was in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the additional costs and burden on the air transportation industry. Amendment 1 is included in your packet. It was adopted unanimously on January 19th, 2021. As we look at the original MOU, it's for a potential of 10 years of service, or even the contract with the state of Wyoming is for 10 years of service. It allowed for 3 primary years, 3 additional years if you continue the contract. And then, an extension is a better way to say that. And then a final extension for 4 years. After the first 3 years of service, there was opportunity to re-engage with SkyWest Airlines, exercise that first clause for an extension, and receive service from fiscal year 23 through fiscal year 25. The amendment number 2 to the MOU did so. The City Council unanimously adopted that on May 24th, 2022. I think it's important to also note here that as we're participating in this program, the state of Wyoming covers 60% of the cost of commercial air service for those CPA airports. Our community is required to cover 40% of the cost to receive commercial air service. It's very important to note that the state of Wyoming believes in commercial air service for the state of Wyoming, and it also puts its money where its mouth is and helps cover 60% of that cost. We appreciate that. All they ask of us is if we want to maintain commercial air service, we belly up and provide 40%. The third amendment to the MOU tonight revises the cost structure for the third year of the first extension of the MOU. That would be fiscal year 25, the year we just started. SkyWest Airlines recently renegotiated its contract with its pilots. It's also experienced significant inflation like so many of their businesses and honestly so many other people through the nation and in our community. Therefore, they proposed an increase to the block hour cost for fiscal year 25. The block hour cost is most simply defined as the unit rate that is charged to the state of Wyoming for the time the aircraft is in the air. So from chalk to chalk, if it's from Riverton or Central Wyoming Regional Airport, as soon as the chalk's pulled, you would charge that block hour rate until it lands and is chalked at Denver International. That is the rate that we're paying. The proposed rate that was approved through the second MOU was $3,531. The proposed rate for Amendment 3 is $4,343. Included in the MOU is also a projected annual subsidy. So this is the cost of the service subtracted by the revenue generated by the service of its own accord, and that's the balance remaining. That projected subsidy in the first contract extension or the second amendment to the MOU was $3,992,000. What's proposed as this projected annual subsidy for the amendment before you tonight is $4,132,907. It's important to know that this is a projection. The state of Wyoming is invoiced on actuals, and they pay the invoice to SkyWest Airlines. They then invoice us, as we've opted in with the MOU, our 40% share. And it is, again, based on actuals. It could be that our annual projected subsidy will be less than what is proposed in this amendment. If it is more than what is proposed, SkyWest Airlines has a cost not to exceed proposal. They could fly at risk, or they could propose cessation of service. I don't think that would be the case, and I also don't think that we're going to be in a scenario at the end of fiscal year 25 where we would meet or even exceed the projected annual subsidy. As you review the documents that are in your packet, you really have three actions to consider tonight. And the first, of course, is to approve amendment number 3. Doing so allows SkyWest Airlines to continue service at Central Wyoming Regional Airport and to Fremont County. Your next action would be to disapprove the MOU that's proposed. That would result in a loss of commercial air service. We would opt out of that CPA program, and we would cease our partnership with SkyWest Airlines. What it would also do is set a clock, so to speak, for TSA to deobligate our airport. Once 90 days surpasses without having commercial flights at an airport, TSA deobligates the airport and then they leave. As we saw with Sheridan almost 8 years ago now, it's very challenging once an airport is deobligated to re-obligate it. If the council disapproves the amendment, there is still opportunity to solicit commercial air service providers to Central Wyoming Regional Airport. However, we would be tasked with negotiating the contract. It would be a direct contract between the city and the airline provider. And if there was a subsidy required for that service, which there would be, we would be on the hook 100% to cover that subsidy. It may be possible to contact the state and apply for the Air Service Enhancement Program funds or the ASEP funds. There's no guarantee that we would be awarded those after opting out of the CPA. You could take no action tonight, and we could propose amendments to the amendment and work through that. Doing so could lead to a brief suspension of service, or it would require SkyWest and the state to float service until we figured out an amendment that we felt comfortable with. Again, pursuant to the conditions of the MOU, the budget impact on this is 40% of the cost of commercial air service. We already have included that in the fiscal year 25 budget. And as referenced earlier in this meeting, we're very fortunate to have the optional 0.5% tax because revenue that is generated from that tax directly supports our connectivity to the National Transportation Network. It directly supports our ability to improve the quality of life in Fremont County and the ability to connect to other communities and do business. I said I would be brief. That was as brief as I could do, Your Honor, out of my staff report and the supporting documents. I'm happy to stand for any questions if you have them.
Any questions? Why don't we, all right, I'd entertain a motion to approve Amendment 3 to the MOU between the Wyoming Department of Transportation and the City of Riverton.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
I'll second.
Councilman Paranto with the motion, Councilwoman Borders with the second. Discussion.
Your Honor, I'd like to echo what Mr. Butterfield said. Our airport is critically important to not just Riverton, but Fremont County. When you look at the overall economic impact of what this airport brings to our communities, I believe it was over 20 million. Not having our airport would be a huge detriment to Riverton and would have a cascading effect to the other airports that are also using this service. So it is vital to our continued success to have air services here.
I guess my concern, I'm just looking at the block hour rate, and that's from 2019, this is almost 100% increase just in the last 5 years. I mean, is that something to expect, that that's just going to be going up every year exponentially?
Your Honor, I think we can expect that increase, but not to the percent that you just referenced. Keep in mind that when we entered into the agreement with SkyWest Airlines, or I should say the state entered into agreement and we opted in with the MOU, we didn't even know what COVID-19 was. We'd never heard of it before. And COVID-19 decimated the travel and transportation industry to the point that it changed the cost projections, the service models across the country. So some of that inflation that you see in the number from the first year of service to now was adjusted because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It also should be noted that there were several communities across the nation that lost air service completely as a result of COVID-19. My personal belief is one of the reasons we were not a community that was considered for losing air service is because we were part of this capacity purchase program. We had the state of Wyoming as a support entity, but we also had 3 other communities as a support entity. And so by banding together, we were stronger and we were able to weather the challenges associated with COVID-19. So I would say no, you shouldn't see as dramatic of an increase because of that unknown variable that occurred early into the contract portion of this agreement. And then for what we're seeing, just from what was proposed in fiscal year '25, what we will now have in fiscal year '25, that has more to do with inflationary costs that we've seen in the last few years. And then in response to the pilot shortage issue that is impacting air service, SkyWest Airlines did negotiate, as I mentioned, a new compensation package for their pilots, and they're rolling that into the block hour cost. I'd like to also mention that the state of Wyoming is fully vetted. The numbers proposed, we've been negotiating this alongside the state for about 6 months. Mead and Hunt was retained as a third-party consultant, and their director of commercial operations was also assisting the state negotiate this number. I'm not going to say that I love the number or that I enjoy the increase, but I would say that it's been vetted, and I think that's the appropriate number at this point.
And in our discussion with the MOU change, the adjustment to that, which I guess we're going to get as our next item, are we going to be able to, because at least estimating, it looks like it's approximately 130,000 more that we would have to cover for air service with this block hour rate adjustment. With that, are we going to be able to cover that with or without the adjustment to the MOU, or would we have to, I guess, what's the future with that?
Your Honor, with the amended MOU that you would have with the Fremont County Association of Governments, it would cover that increase. Mr. Krishiznik was very aware of this as he was working with FCAG on this matter. So we didn't have the final number from SkyWest or the state, but we had a pretty close estimate. So I know that that's incorporated within the MOU that you would be considering on the next action item. Without the amendment to the FCAG MOU, the 20% that's already allocated to commercial air service will not cover the block hour cost or the projected annual subsidy that's part of the MOU before you tonight. As a result, we would have to work with our partner entities across the county to see if they would be willing to allocate part of their 70% discretionary funds, if they would be willing to contribute other funds associated with their governing bodies, and do our best to meet the requirement that would be part of this MOU.
Which we had to do a couple of years ago anyway.
That's correct. The other option is we could reduce the service levels. We do have a reserve right now in our air service account because we were restricted to one flight a day, and then we were restricted to one flight and then only 2 round-trip flights in addition to that. So we could reduce the level of service to curb some of the costs associated with this MOU. That would be disappointing because we saw such support in the month of June with the addition of the daily second flight, but we have to prioritize what we can pay for.
I guess the thing is, with it's almost a two-edged sword to get 2 flights a day, because you're getting another flight, which means more capacity, more ability to be having money that's made in tickets, but it also means more block hour.
Twice as many
being
block
charged.
outs.
Yep. So, but I will say, we had 2 flights a day in 2019, and we still didn't have the numbers that we had this June.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
The secret's we got to fill up airplanes, and so far the numbers are supporting that the Riverton and Fremont County economy can generate more passengers, and so, I mean, that's the best chance we have is for people to fill those airplanes up.
And Your Honor, the consistency of service has helped as well. You know, having those 2 flights actually makes it easier for people to fly out of Riverton.
Well, that's what was difficult with our former provider too, is that the flights weren't always leaving. They weren't always being used. that's one of the benefits that I can definitely see to SkyWest.
Your Honor, I
No, go ahead.
cut you off. I would just say if there were two other points that I could make before you end discussion. The first would be as it relates to the increased capacity. For the month of June, we basically doubled the capacity available, which also doubles the amount of block hours that you would be charged. But I'm very pleased with how our market responded because we essentially doubled the capacity, but we did not see a reduction in the load factor, meaning the percentage of people across the board that are flying out. So we doubled capacity, but did not see a month-over-month drop of the amount of passengers that were flying or the percentage of the available seats that were filled, and it was about 70%.
In other words, if we doubled the capacity, we could have seen that the load factor would be the same. Let's say we had 50% of our flights that were filled, or all of our flights were filled 50%, one or the other. And if we had had 2 flights filled 25%, we'd be getting the same load factor, but we didn't change the load factor with the additional flights. Gotcha.
Your Honor, that's correct. We were worried as a fast team that there may be a lag in the load factor on that second flight because it had not been available for purchase for more than 60 days in advance of the first flight. But we kept it at 70%, give or take, between enplanements and deplanements. The morning flight stayed at 70%. What we were worried about was the morning flight would stay at 70% and the afternoon daily flight would be at 50 or below. And that didn't happen. And so I think that's a testament to the market that we have. And so while we have to watch the cost and the block hour charges and the fuel, we also have to remember that there's a revenue side. And so long as we fill the plane, as Councilman Bailey mentioned, we can maintain commercial air service and hopefully reduce the cost of that subsidy as we move forward.
Sounds good.
The other point that I was hoping to make, and I was able to meet with all the city departments over the last 2 weeks to talk about the budget. And while commercial air service may not directly tie into all of our departments within the city, it may not even impact all the businesses directly within the city of Riverton. However, as Councilman Paranto mentioned, we've seen study after study that shows that communities with commercial air service have economic activity. And the study that was recently performed for our area specifically brought $20 million of economic activity to Fremont County. That's important to our other city departments because we are a very sales tax driven revenue structure. So if we can do everything we can to improve the economy in Fremont County, we're also improving the dollars that are circulating in the community, which means we're increasing the potential for sales tax revenue, which means we can support more general fund activities. We don't have a lot of opportunity to control revenue as local governments, but if we can control the economic development in our community, we are improving our general fund revenues, which helps the police department, which helps the community development department, which helps the public works department. So there's an ability to improve sales tax by maintaining commercial air service connectivity. I thought I'd make that point, and please take that as the gospel according to Kyle Butterfield.
Sounds good. 5th one. All right. Any other discussion, questions, amendments? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right. Modification of Fremont County sales tax for economic development, memorandum of understanding. Mr. Butterfield, were you going to handle this one?
Your Honor, I can be even briefer than I was on the last one.
Amazing.
With the passage of the economic development tax, Fremont County Association of Governments, or FCAG, entered into an MOU regarding the use of the optional tax. Specifically, it banded the groups together to say, of the 30% approved by the ballot initiative that would go towards transportation, 20 would support air service, 10 would support ground transportation. That was agreed to through this MOU. It then also referenced that the 70% that remained would be discretionary to the individual governing bodies to utilize in their community to promote economic development activities. By the ballot initiative, economic development was defined as bringing jobs into the community, a net influx of money into the community, and/or. The other thing the MOU discussed was with the 70% usage, each community would develop or create a recommending committee, a citizen committee that could field requests from the community and then vet them and bring them forward to the city council. FCAG proposed a modification to this original MOU. It was approved by the city council March 19th, 2024. This modification basically adjusted how each entity allocated its discretionary 70%. Specifically, it enabled an increased allocation towards air service, as we were just discussing, and then support towards ground transportation, and then ambulance service in Fremont County. Pursuant to the MOU, modifications require a majority vote of the parties in order to be enacted. While a majority of the participating entities have approved the modification to the MOU similar to how the city of Riverton has, there are 2 members of FCAG that have not at this point. I think tonight the city council can discuss and consider how it wants to move forward with this MOU. While you have authorization, or FCAG has authorization to implement the modification, you may want to consider whether or not you would prefer to have unanimous support from each body, participating body with Fremont County Association of Governments. I believe that's what you were hoping to discuss tonight. There's more detail in your packet, and with that, Your Honor, I'll leave it to you.
Okay. So the way, in terms of discussion for this matter, and I'm just not sure what we would want to do, would be we could either say we're going to stick with what we've agreed to, which would be a modification in terms of how much is going to the airport would be increased, how much is going to actually ground transportation, and I think that's an important delineation to make there. How much would be going to ground transportation would increase. There would also be an amount that would go towards ambulance service. That's what we had voted on last time. And the discretionary fund then would be left to 30% of the total. So it kind of flip-flops. Am I correct that it was 30%? 20. Thanks, Kevin. Do you have anything else to add, Kevin or Tim? You might as well, since you were kind of behind it.
Your Honor, members of the council, Kevin Kershishnik with Ford Fremont County PAC, or IDEA Inc., I'm not sure which one. First off, I'd like to say on the air service side, what Administrator Butterfield said is spot on. It's exactly the case. We did make the accommodation with the modified MOU to adjust for the increase in the MRG. So roughly the numbers, it goes from about 850,000 to 1.9 million with the modified, and that would cover the increase at the 40%. We'll need about 1.7 mil. So a little bit of a buffer on that. That was the intent, to make sure that we had that in place. The ground transportation increased, so of the overall, it went from 10 to 17%, and that leaves 20% for ambulance and 20% for projects of your choosing. So what we want to do as a Ford Fremont County PAC was to have that information unanimously agreed to by all the elected bodies, so then we could go tell the public exactly how this allocation would be. And then, as Mr. Butterfield had said, things changed. 2 of the entities have not approved that at this point. One voted, the county voted 3-2 against supporting the modified MOU. Du Bois has not voted, to the best of my knowledge. But we believe they're not going to be in support. I don't, Tim, did they vote? Okay, so they voted it down as well. So those are the 2 entities that have voted against that.
Well, then as near as I can tell, so then we could say, well, we're going to still have funding from Riverton that will go towards those entities as we've agreed. So we could say, regardless of anybody else doing what it says, we'll do it. We'd have a percentage that would go towards the ambulance, percentage increase towards the airport, percentage increase towards ground transportation. The other option would be we say, hey, wait, this is majority. We had agreed it's the majority. Everybody needs to do this. There's some positives and negatives to that. I think right now we've got a pretty good relationship with the county. I don't know if we'd necessarily want to sit there and say, no, wait a minute, you've got to do this because the majority agreed to it. I also think the language specifically says that it has to be passed at FCAG or a similar meeting, which makes it a little bit odd that we each considered them in our own bodies, unlike what the MOU says, that an amendment would have to be considered at FCAG or similar meeting. So it's on shakier ground to be able to say, oh, we're going to enforce this and say the county and Du Bois need to participate in this way. The other option would be we just go back to the old MOU. We say, well, this was a good experiment. We had two entities that didn't want to do it. We'll just go back to where we were with the old MOU. Fourth option that I had thought of would be to basically have a new MOU again that would leave it discretionary as to whether we would want, as to whether each entity would want to put additional funding into the airport, into the ambulance, or into ground transportation. The benefit to that would be each of the bodies could say, well, even if WRTA doesn't come and say, hey, we want money, or FAST doesn't come and say, we would like money, then we could still put money towards those, and it would be discretionary rather than saying you have to put in this amount. We can say you can put this in without necessarily having a body come and asking you. Mr. Bailey.
Kevin, is there specific items of the new MOU that the county and/or Du Bois have issue with that could be modified? Or have they given us that direction?
So the comments that we received were that the county, the three individuals that voted against it, felt that the ballot verbiage had been changed. And just want to clarify, it will not, right? The ballot verbiage is going to be exactly the same. The only change is in the allocation through the MOU of that 70%.
Mm-hmm.
So that was their comments. They also said that ambulance is not a required service statutorily, so they don't have to provide that. Didn't say they weren't going to. Doesn't mean that they have to. So they talked about, they said, well, have you gotten information from all the constituents, all the voters, as to where they stand? And the answer was, well, through FCAG, we represent the constituents. You guys represent your constituents to the mayor, to FCAG. They wanted more information. So what we took upon ourselves was to put together a survey, and we've started to distribute this, and I can provide copies here. And on that, it just lists out, how important is air, ground transportation, ambulance, and economic development projects. So we will be running this through County 10 starting next week. So it'll be a digital option as well. And what I can tell you is thus far, we did a couple of surveys here in Riverton, 55 people total. So small sample size, yet statistically significant. And what we saw, they strongly agree with commercial air service being important, ground transportation, and then you start to see more variability on the next two. So questions 5 and 6 regarding economic development projects and ambulance. And that's what we saw, and we will provide the results to you guys, to FCAG for sure, for any future direction and decisions. But that's where we stand today. We hope to have that information compiled and ready for FCAG for the meeting, was it 27th or so of July, that Thursday. That's our intent. Directions from them, Du Bois, when we were up there, they made comments about the air service, that they could go to Jackson and fly out. Maybe theirs would be a little bit different than this. We'll have to see with the polls. The ambulance, well, obviously was important to them. They had asked several things. Can they be transported to Jackson, for example, versus Fremont County? Questions like that. So those were the comments that we received. I guess we'd have to ask each one of them specifically, where they stand on that.
And Mr. Nichols, you actually were there at the county meeting, if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can provide a little more or additional clarification. Kevin pretty much covered the most of it. By the way, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Essentially, the primary concern resting with the county was the interpretation this would have with the public in that it somehow misled their understanding of the ballot language. To summarize, Du Bois's concern mainly lied with the impact it would have on the community, removing the discretionary funds and allocating them into siloed purposes. So that, just to summarize the individual concerns there, that pretty much summarizes it. Okay.
Part of the concern expressed, and it was expressed by Commissioner Larry Allen at the tax meeting where we attended, was that, well, the ballot language is 70% would be going towards discretionary funds being able to be used by each body. And the concern expressed was, well, this is different than the ballot language. And if it's different than the ballot language, then I don't like the idea of it. To sum up Commissioner Allen's comments, I would say that Commissioner Thomas had indicated a concern about FCAG being the source of it. I didn't quite understand that concern, but that's kind of what was expressed by them. I'd say Du Bois didn't like it, just all total. And I guess, and I can understand the concerns. This was an idea that was put forward, something we wanted to discuss. It seemed like it helped the concerns for ambulance service that were expressed by the county. We had discussed the idea of ambulance service being a sales tax as opposed to just being felt by property owners. Made sense as we were discussing this. So, yeah. Anything else?
No, just, to reiterate the thing as far as the PAC going back out, educating the public. We can have information that would say, this is what we're going to support. That would obviously be best case. If not, we'll end up going out and saying the 70% will be discretionary based on the elected officials, those governing bodies to make that decision, is what we would end up doing. And again, we'll have the survey results for the FCAG meeting end of this month.
And I think in terms of what FCAG is planning on doing, in terms of recommendations that would be made from FCAG, they're waiting for the survey results because that's what was the biggest concern expressed, I think, by Du Bois and the county was, wait a minute, we want to know what people want. And it's a good question. I can tell you when we've seen that when we had the vote here, we didn't have anyone that expressed any opposition to it. I've not had anyone express any opposition to it when it's been notified. It's been something that's been out there and able for people to see. When we discussed it at FCAG, there was some concerns about whether ambulance service would count as economic development. I think everybody there, though, still agreed that they felt that ambulance service would. That was also expressed by the county, that they're like, well, if you think ambulance service is economic development, we'll take that into consideration into how we'll be deciding how to spend the MOVE funds.
Because, Your Honor, to me, the county has the most to gain from including ambulance service because they're the ones writing that check to subsidize that service now. And I have had a little bit of public comment regarding ambulance service as a private, as a private business, but it really isn't. It's sort of like some of the service, community service groups that we have. You could say that PAWS is a private entity and they should fund their own problem, but the city of Riverton gets a huge gain from them taking care of that issue that if we didn't have PAWS, we would have to deal with that issue on our own. And so, unless, somebody wants to go get their EMT certification and drive around and pick me up when I'm having a heart attack, I don't know what the answer is. I think we all see the value to our community, just like it's important to have a hospital and air service and all that. I think it's important to have an ambulance service that we know can respond in the emergencies that happen. Hopefully I never have to ride on one, but I don't mind putting that money in just in case I do need to, that it's there, so.
Your Honor, is there any further discussion on making a special district for ambulance service?
So, yeah, the county has discussed multiple ways to fund that. It could be special district. could be a special purpose tax. You know, we have the general 1%, special purpose, and then the economic development tax. They were talking about possibly using that as well. And that's why we said, well, let's try to minimize the tax. Let's roll it underneath the economic development tax. So then we just have the two on the general ballot. So that was the intent. And for the ambulance, just a point of clarification there, currently that service costs the county 1.8 million, 1.8 and change. So we had said, all right, we'll get the 800,000 off of the sales tax with that 20%. And then the county was still going to cover the 1 million portion of that. Now, Commissioner Allen or Chair Allen, he did make the comment that, well, maybe they could use their 70% discretionary to cover the ambulance in its entirety. It's an economic development project, so that is an option. That was a comment they made to Tim and I when we were at the meeting.
So the question then for this body is, what do we want to do? We want to go back to what we've had? Do we want to, we could also just wait and see what FCAG kind of comes up with.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
I think with the county not passing it, that I would prefer that it stay how it is. And those that want to use their discretionary funds to fund the project can still, but it allows more local control of the discretionary money and the constituents in that area. So I would just, if everybody's not going to be for it, allow it to stay how it is, and people can decide on how the discretionary funds go moving forward.
And I hear you, and I think that's a good way to do it too. My only concern is now that we have this passed by some of the body, unless we have another MOU that would be saying, no, we're going to go back to what the MOU was previously, there'd be confusion.
You currently have majority, 5 of the 7.
So we'd still have to have a vote on something down the road.
Honor,
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering, what facility do you have that you're going to be shipping $232,000 back to the governing body who pays for the ambulance service? We go with what we've got. We say we want it. And so how do we facilitate paying that money to the ambulance service?
The way that the MOU was worded was that it would basically go to the county and that it would be going towards ambulance services.
But because they turned it down, which is a shocker of all shockers, we want to wait and find out what FCAG comes up and finds out, you know, what the poll is. I mean, it would be nice to know what people really want if they would participate in something like that.
It's helpful. I will say the poll, and this was a complaint we addressed just earlier today, doesn't specifically say, do you support this iteration of the MOU? And I get that. But it's kind of hard, I think, to poll people on that because you're having to do a lot of instruction and giving them a copy of it. And already as it stands, I think most people don't really love filling out surveys. I even got a $5 bill in the mail for doing a survey for the Census Bureau, and I didn't even do it. I kept the $5 bill.
They said the $5 first? That's their mistake.
That's kind of weird, sending cash in the mail. But I guess if you're the Census Bureau.
It's your money.
Yeah, that's true. It was a tax return. So I guess what I would say is that could be a good idea. We kind of wait and see what FCAG would have coming up at the next meeting. I know that the FCAG's in the same position we are. It's kind of like, we've got to do something. Because even if we decided we wanted to go back to the old one, which is what Councilwoman Salisbury said, which I agree that would be a good option, we'd still have to have a vote on that. It would have to be passed by all of the FCAG members. So,
Your Honor, something's not adding up in my head. So if Du Bois doesn't want ambulance service, is that portion of that allocated to the communities that do? Do they have to,
Well,
If you want to send them, I mean, it's kind of taken away from their citizens, so I don't really understand why they wouldn't want it. But are they going to forego that part of the funding if they don't want to vote for it?
Well, and that's a sore point with Du Bois, because they also get a little bit frustrated with the fact that most of the ground transportation money was going to WRTA, and there was no bus going to Du Bois. Now, by the way, for people that are interested in the Friday night rodeo in Du Bois over the summer, WRTA is busing people to and from Du Bois. You're not just dropping them off there.
Find your own way home.
Find your own way home.
It's down.
Busing people to and from Du Bois for the Friday night rodeo. So we do have something going on in the summer. There are plans in the future to be able to expand. If you've looked at the 5-year plan from WRTA, to be able to expand so that we would have a bus that would be going to and from Du Bois that would connect to the rest of the county.
Well, and another question, since we're talking about rodeo in Du Bois, do they not have an ambulance on standby? And whose ambulance is it?
That's a county ambulance.
Yeah, they have a barn with 3 crews up there.
But they don't want an ambulance there.
No, they want the county to continue to pay for the ambulance and
Oh,
them to have
gotcha.
their 70% economic development funds.
I gotcha.
It's about 20% of the ambulance expense for 6% of the population.
But either way, it's coming out of our pockets
Mhm.
as taxpayer. That's what it ultimately is. And that's, so it's just as to how.
Your Honor, I think FCAG needs to clean up the whole, well, since it's the first time we've had this economic development, and then I think it's going to have to clean up all of these questions before it can change.
I agree. Mr. Nichols, get on that. Get them cleaning that up.
So do you want a motion to table?
We don't have a motion
It's
right
not an
now.
item.
We don't have a motion, we can let it go.
We just had this as a point of discussion today and
Gotcha.
being able to decide where we're gonna go with it, so. Mr. Nichols, which, by the way, in case you don't know, Mr. Nichols serves as the WRTA Executive Director as well as the FCAG Executive Director, which is why I keep on bringing him up to answer questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So just to answer one more, I was kind of included in there. The way this process took place is that each governing body had to authorize their representative, their mayor, their commissioner, to sign or essentially vote on this modification. That vote is specified has to happen in an FCAG meeting or similar when all of the bodies are present in one room. Only 5 of the 7 entities authorize their representative to sign or vote in favor of. So the vote has not happened in an FCAG meeting yet, as we've attempted to try and collect unanimous consent. That being said, FCAG can strategize on how it would like to move forward, table the vote until a later date. That is within FCAG's discretion at this point to kind of clean this up and provide clarification. So hopefully that provides a little more clarification on the process and how it will take and how it has taken place so far.
Mr. Bailey.
So if FCAG does not vote on this MOU that we're talking about, the half-cent tax is still up for reelection, and it would default back to the original MOU, I assume.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Bailey, stuck between Commissioner and Councilman right now. That is correct, is that the modification of the MOU has not formally taken its vote. So it stands as its original MOU presently. That being said, there is an element of, time sensitivity that FCAG does have to act on behalf of the governing bodies and the way they have voted. So that will come up in the next FCAG meeting.
Well, in other words, you're right, Mr. Bailey. I haven't signed it, even though we voted in approval of it.
So we gave you the authorization to vote for it.
Right.
But if the vote did not happen,
right,
or it failed, the existing MOU still continues on through the next 4 years? Would that be
Yes.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that is correct. I guess, since we have to deal with technicalities, right, because that's where
Yeah.
we are, it's not something that I've signed, it's not something that anyone else has signed. We just have governing bodies that have approved the representatives to sign it now. if we went to that meeting and said, you know, subsequent discussion has led me to believe the council is not behind us on this, you're right, we could just say, okay, we won't sign it then.
So it remains unadulterated.
I would say you're right, yeah.
Your Honor, Julie had her hand up.
Yes, could you come up to the mic?
So in reference to Christie's comment that FCAG needs to clean this up, so FCAG, you guys have sent your mayor there to vote, and you've given him how you want him to vote, but the commissioners have one representative there, and that one representative does not get to make the decision for the commissioners. Correct?
They do.
So,
Commissioner will appoint,
so Ron can come to FCAG, even though FCAG has voted 3-2 against it, and he can go against them and say at FCAG he could approve it?
no, he would have to go with what the commissioner.
So he's got to go back, so they still have to. So you're not going to get anything still from FCAG? I mean,
Fair point. You're right. I guess the one thing that we could have at FCAG would be a meeting where we would say, okay, this MOU is up for discussion. Are we going to sign it or not? And we could say, well.
so the discussion would be, you're going to move forward as a majority rather than unanimously.
Which we could do, but then, you know, how are you going to enforce that, right?
Right.
We going to,
Well, and you know, when I was sitting back here listening to Kevin, when he said that the top two that people supported were ground transportation and air service. So why are we not having just the discussion of that's the two things we modify with this whole thing? You know, I've talked to people up in Du Bois, and they don't want their 70% stripped away from them. Like you said, you know, they got their ambulance paid for. They don't want their 70%, which is already a small piece of the pie, reduced to anything less than what it is. We just, but you know, we're up against the time frame of how are we going to get this out there to the citizens. So as Kyle has expressed, Dean has expressed, and Kevin, we need air service. So we need to focus on this forward. And can we just make it about air service and ground transportation, and then the other discretionary money, and take the ambulance? Kevin and I, that's what we said at the last meeting. Do we just scrap this whole thing and start over with it? But I just wanted to clarify that with the county. FK can't really make any final decisions on this other than we move forward as a majority.
that's right. And I guess that is the decision FCAG could make. We could say, are we going to go forward and say, no, everybody has to do this, or are we going to say no? And I guess my question for this body is, would you prefer, if it came down to trying to enforce it, would you prefer that we would say, no, we're not going to try to enforce this, and we'd rather go back to the prior MOU?
I think that's right.
I don't know if that's a battle we want to fight.
That's kind of where I was at, too.
And the county's got the biggest stake in that, and they're sort of the big brother, big bully, whatever you want to call it, in the scenario. So, I mean, they sort of get the money and pass it on to us, don't they? Or does it come directly to us?
Your Honor, they get the money and they pass it on to us.
So there you go.
Okay.
I would much rather see the half-cent stay in effect under the old MOU than to cause a contentious issue that would cast a shadow on the half-cent tax overall, and we end up losing the whole thing because we can't agree on how to spend it.
Whereas we agreed how to spend it.
Right.
Originally. And we thought we were doing the county's bidding on the ambulance service until they gave us the finger.
Yeah.
Which is hard. And that's what I heard when we questioned our representative from the county commissioners at solid waste. That's what he said. It didn't read as
The ballot language.
the ballot language. And I said, okay, that eliminates that problem.
So I guess, Mr. Butterfield, would we want to have a vote in that regard? I mean, we could consider a motion if the pleasure of the council would be to go back to the way it was, then when I'd go to FCAG, we could say,
Technically, we're not going back.
Right. We're just saying we're not going to approve the MOU.
Right.
How would we handle
Or
it?
the change to the MOU.
We could do it at the next meeting. How's that sound?
No, that sounds fine. I would say you don't have a motion on the table at this point. I don't think you need to take action right now. You're garnering consensus about what could potentially happen with this modification. So I think you've already been given authority to sign the modification, but if through this consensus you choose not to sign it, if it even goes before FCAG for a vote, you have your direction. As far as going back, as Councilman Paranto said, there's no need to go back because the standing MOU is standing. It's in force and it will be in full force unless the modification is voted upon. So I really don't think you need to take action at this point.
Sounds good. Well, and I have the direction from the council, so thank you. Okay,
We got
thank you,
someone to
gentlemen.
blame it on.
Your Honor,
Good job.
will they continue with this
Yes,
survey?
that's happening no matter what.
So can we find out what the results of the survey are whenever that becomes?
I would think so.
Great.
Yeah, and that's going to be discussed at the next FCAG meeting too, so I'll make sure that's distributed.
That'll be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. We don't have anything else on the agenda except an executive session, which I already promised Ernie we were not going to have yesterday morning on the radio. So we've got to keep to that. I don't break my promises to Ernie. So I'd consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
We'll say that the motion is from Mr. Paranto, second is by Councilman Larson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. We are adjourned at
9:05.
9:06. Oh, 9:05, 9:06? Sure.